Good morning and aloha. Welcome to Just Talking 24, page 64. Um, Before we even start, if you hear noises in the background, we're in the middle of a flash flood watch. Yeah, it's been raining. We've had this thing called a Kona low, and it's a weather system. It's a low pressure weather system, and it's been drenching us. And so what you hear is the rain dripping down. It's been raining pretty well. And sorry about that. That's just the way it's gonna be. You're gonna hear that, and it gets annoying after a while. Um, but today, I want to talk about something. It's a word, the word as usual. But this word everybody runs away from. Well, most people run away from. Most people don't want to talk about it. Most people just they just want to ignore it. They jump into the river. Okay, and it's usually when I give you a word, I have my sarcasm and I have my negative stuff about it and I grumble about it. Well, this is one word I don't. In life, my philosophy of life, there are only two gotta. Yeah, I've told you this before. When you say, "Oh, I gotta go to the store, I gotta do this, I gotta do that." No, that's all choices. But there are two gotta, and you know what they are. You gotta be born, and you gotta die. And today's talk was influenced by the passing of Mr. Chuck Norris. He died on the island of Kauai a few days ago. By the time you see this, and I didn't know the man. I didn't. But one of my friends, Sam, he came coming back from the mainland one time. He was on the plane, and he got upgraded, and he was in first class. And guess who was sitting right next to him? Yeah, Chuck Norris. And he gushed when he saw me. I mean, we saw Chuck Norris in all his movies and everything, and appreciate his karate and everything. But he goes, Cam, that guy is so freaking down to earth. He is so humble. He is and he went on and on. And I never seen him, gush like that. I mean, we see Tom Selleck, we see stuff like that, Jack Lord. I mean, I used to tow his car, and he was a nice man. His wife was so beautiful. But anyway, but yeah, he said, man, this guy is a superstar. And this was back in the I don't remember if it was late 70s or early 80s, but it was a while back. And he just said, "Oh, this guy is so down to earth, bro. You're not gonna believe it. All the way he was just talking just like nothing. Yeah." And so he passed away. And I want to wish his family, my condolences, as in Charlie Kirk. But what happens when we die? You ever thought about that? And I'm sure you have. I mean, I can remember when I was a little kid and I was trying to understand the concept of death. I would be so afraid I would cry. I remember one time I was in the garage downstairs and I thought about dying, and I looked around at at the valley and said, I'm never going to see this again. And I started crying. I was so scared. And as you get older, um, you just you learn. Well, I don't know if you learn to accept it, but what really helped me out, really did, was working in the hospital. Because when you work in the hospital, you are constantly confronted by death. Really, especially in a geriatric hospital. People come in there and a lot of times they don't leave. Yeah, I mean, they're old. I've had how many patients say that, I've never been to the hospital in my life, and 2 days later I'm what we call bag and tag. Yeah, wrapping them up and sending them to the morgue. And it's sad, but then it's the end of life. I mean, they're old. I that's why I cannot handle the NICU, neonatal, the kids, the women's and children's hospital can't handle that because a lot of these kids they didn't have a life, and you see them die, and I couldn't handle that. I know me already. If you if you're an adult and you deserve to get lickings, you get lickings. I don't worry about that. Never killed anybody, but I've heard a few. But and then when they're old, oh, you listen to their stories, you listen to their experiences. Mean, but we must die, and all it is really just we have a life force in all of us. Man cannot reduplicate that life force. He tries to with electricity. Believe me. He thinks shocking you can bring you back. All it does is just sometimes it jumpstarts your machine, which is your body, to run again. But it's not a guarantee. He can't reduplicate that one energy of life that we have. And you think about it. This is how life starts, right? How does life start? Mom and dad get it on, and you got the sperm and the egg. Now that sperm, okay, the egg gets let go by the ovaries, and it finds its way down the fallopian tube, and it stays there, right? That's ovulation. That's called ovulation. And then during sex, the ejaculate has its semen, and in the semen or the seminal fluid are these little tadpoles, the little sperms. And these suckers swim. Now, you gotta remember now, they gotta swim from the vaginal wall, okay, through the cervix, along the uterine wall, into the fallopian tube, and then get to the egg. And then it's not first come, first serve. Once they all get to the egg, they gotta fight to get in there. Now, where does all this energy come from? And the sperm can last for up to 3 days. The male ones, I think. I don't know what the female ones. You guys more stubborn. You guys gonna stay around longer. But yeah, think about how much energy that takes. Okay. Now in the sperm, there's the DNA, RNA. Yeah, all the genetic material. But that's all energy. Where does this energy come from? It comes from dad. You know, he seminal. I don't know what, but whatever that energy is, it's in there. So that's his energy. Mom's energy is in the egg, just waiting. When that sperm breaks through into the egg, it dissolves and they join genetic material. Her energy, his energy becomes your energy. Get that? That's why we all have our own energies. The only time you can possibly share an energy, identical twins. We hear that identical twins, they live miles apart, yet they know what each other is thinking, right? They know what each other is feeling. Why? Because they share that energy. Your brain, it processes the physical stuff, keeps your body going, right? And it'll do reasoning and understanding and everything. But that's only the physical part. I really believe, okay, and people gonna say, yeah, once you're supposed to give out the drugs, not sample them. I know, but I really believe that our brain is a transceiver, and it has a spiritual side. It picks up on this energy. Like sometimes you have an intuition. What is that? You're picking up something, one energy. People that can see things. I had a respiratory therapist, and she would say, like, we had 12 rooms on our unit, and she would say, hey, don't go into room 7. And room 7 was supposed to be our break room, but because it was so close in space, in area to the rest of the rooms, they gave a room, they turned it into 2 patients' rooms. We had 7A and 7B. But I guess I'm blessed and I can't feel anything, but a couple of times when I went back there, 7A, which is way in the corner, and I'm feeling it right now. I feel those, that tingly sensation. Something was wrong there, and we would. That was the room that was our what we call gateway to death, to the afterlife. In CCU on the third floor, we had a room like that too, room 340, and that was the portal, what they call portal to the next side. It's unexplainable. It is, but there is a power, and the power isn't electrical. It's not, you know, chemical. It's not kinetic. It is a special. It is God's power. It is the life force. Sometimes we can bring them back. When the patient codes, sometimes we can kickstart that motor and get it running again, and we bring the patient back. And sometimes if they're younger, they get chance. That's why I like St. Jude, because St. Jude, they work on the kids, and the kids are young. When a kid dies, that's really hard. That's really major. But the older folks, well, you got to be careful too, because when you're doing CPR, you don't want to turn their chest into, hamburger, because of the osteoporosis, the hardening of. You have to be very careful. You got to feel your way. When you give CPR on seniors, you got to feel it, because you can just crush their chest. I've seen it happen. I've seen these new residents. Oh, they just going to town with the CPR. I mean, the patient, the patient not gonna make it already. So you just let them go. They need us. They need I guess experience and practice. They have that machine. You ever saw that machine? That pneumatic pumper, boom, boom. And they said it saved a lot of lives, and it has. If you put it on the younger folks, and when I mean younger, 50 and below, your chest can still take the compression, can still bend a little. But as you get older, you get more and more stiff, and the chest not gonna take the take the bending. It's gonna crack. And I've seen X-rays afterwards, after they pass and they take X-rays. Yeah, you get fractures, but you gotta try. You gotta try, and the only other way you're gonna do it is to open up the chest and massage it by hand. Nobody does that. There is no. I mean, not nobody, but it'll be done in the OR. It'll be done for open in extreme, you know, ex, I mean extenuating circumstances. It is extenuating circumstances, but yeah. So death is just your life force leaving you. That's why, yeah, death is the end of physical life, uh, but it's not the end of existence. So many things have happened. So many things I've seen. Um, well, people see it all the time, right? The paranormal, and where's your proof? Where's your proof? And now they got proof. I mean, now they got videos all over the place, and people still jump in the river. Instead of accepting it, they jump in the river, and you don't know when your time's coming. I mean, I had a friend. He was a fire captain, 54 years old. He used to run Tin Men's. A Tin Man is a half of an Iron Man. An Iron Man is a sporting event. They call it an event. It's where you run a full marathon. That's 26 point something miles, right? And then you got to bike 100 miles. And I think you got to swim 12 or 15 miles or some kind of ridiculously, But you got to do this one after the other. No rest in between. You just go from one to another, and they call it Iron Man. And they usually run it on the big island of Hawaii. Well, they have this one called Tin Man, and the Tin Man is half of an Iron Man, you know. And this 54-year-old fire captain used to, I mean, he was trained, he was in shape. Oh, even in my best shape, I was never in shape. But he was out kayaking one day outside Ala Moana, and they found him slumped over in the kayak. massive heart attack. And that, when they say massive heart attack, all it means is your heart stopped. And it stopped suddenly, so massive. Yeah, that's all it is. Just his heart just stopped. So when it's your time, and I firmly believe this, when it's your time, it is your time. Some people say that dogs know when they're gonna die, and they'll walk off and they just die. You know, and people know too, because I've had a few of my um, patients. I had this one sweet, sweet Japanese lady, and she was in my unit, and she goes, I'm gonna go home today. And I told her, Mama, not yet, not you. You're still kind of sick. Don't worry. You're gonna go. We're gonna, we're gonna get you well, and then we'll send you. We'll downgrade you and downgrade you, and you're gone. She goes, no, 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 no. I got home today. I said, okay. I said, well, you go home, and then I'll see you tomorrow morning. Because I used to leave at 1:30 in the afternoon. I started at 5 in the morning, and I leave at 1:30. So, I go, and before I go home, I say goodbye to all my patients. You guys take care, listen to the nurse, behave yourselves, stuff like that. Yeah. And I went the next day, and I went to her, and sure enough, that afternoon, during her sleep, she just coded, and she was a DNR. So they didn't do anything. But I mean, she knew. And a couple of times that happened too. Guys tell me, I'm not gonna make it out of here. Not this time. No. My luck's up already. My number's up. And this is a guy. I tell him, what you talking about? He said, no. And but my number's up. Every game gotta end, bro. Every game gotta end. And they tell me these things. I mean, my friends, my patients are, I guess, so comfortable with me, and we talk about the ideology of life and death and stuff like that. And they come and they say, no, brother, I'm gonna go. I said, okay, if you go, brother, aloha. He goes, thank you. Sure enough, go back the next day. Brother went. You know, like my mom. My mom went to sleep. Never woke up. Maybe she knew, maybe she didn't. I don't know. I really don't. Because what was usually unusual was usually when she has a cold, she'd sleep in her chair. She'd sleep sitting up because lying down was too bad. But that night, she wanted to sleep in bed with dad. Yeah. Now that, you rethink what happened, rethink what happened. What did she do was it ordinary? And that's what was out of the ordinary. Usually when she has a bad cold, she'll sleep sitting up. Easier for her to breathe. But that night she just went to bed, and she did not wake up the next day. She died in bed. And dad had full dementia, so he didn't know what's going on. You know what I mean? I saw him walking around the next morning. How come he's still in pajamas? Yeah, but that's death. Death is very, people don't like to talk about it. But yet, everybody's going to meet it. Everybody's going to, it's inevitable. Like people ask me, what happens if you meet death? And I say, when I meet death, and okay, I know I'm getting in trouble for this, but God is death. God is life. God is death. I told you, God is the perfect balance. So when death comes for me, if I can, I will embrace it like an old friend and thank it for giving me all this time. I just celebrated my 71st birthday. Yeah. And so, I ain't no spring chicken, But yeah, I will embrace death, and I'll walk with him. No problem. I've accepted the fact that, I'm getting on in my years, and I am going to, because I'm closer to the end than from the beginning. How's that? Yeah. And I'm not grumbling. Not grumbling at all. It's been a ride. Oh, what a rush. and it's not over. It's not over. That's why I keep doing this telecast, this page. It's not over until the fat lady sings, and she ain't sung yet. She hasn't sung yet. Yeah, I get such good language. Yeah, I was talking to this Jehovah Witnesses. They still come to the house, and the temple, well, the Kingdom Hall in our valley has gone to Pigeon. Everything is in Pigeon. The watchtower thing, the pamphlet that they give, is in Pigeon. Okay. Well, you guys know that I grew up speaking standard American English, but my friends and I, when we get together, the Pigeon comes out. The local boy comes out. I can't understand that pamphlet, and I told him, I read it, and I'm reading it, but it's not it's not catching. you know Something's wrong. I don't understand Pigeon. And they go, oh, and the the talks, everything is in Pigeon. Yeah, all of the I guess the sermons. I've never been to one of the services. Okay, so I don't know. Maybe if any of you out there know what goes on, but imagine it in Pigeon English. I said, no, if I'm going to go to one, I'm going to go to a normal one. I think I might, stand a better chance of understanding what's going on. But yes, but that's what I believe. Death. We just ashes to ashes, dust to dust to dust. And thanks for letting me use this, this shell. But I'm gonna, you move on, and I don't know where we go. And that's the part people. I think that's what fears them. That's what scares them the most. They don't know. Number one, is there life after death? What we call life. But see, I don't call it life after death. There is existence after death. Like I said, all these things that happen, and all the people see the spirits and all this kind of stuff, and all these stories come out, cannot be all coincidence. There is something out there we just don't know. And it's this unknown that people are afraid of. That's why people always ask, "Where's your proof? Where's your proof?" Why? Because they're scared of the truth. And I ask them, when they ask me for proof, I do ask people, what would you do with it if I were to able to produce the proof and give it to you? What would you do? See, one of the reasons why there is no proof of life after death is because those, okay, if you're having a bad time and there's life after death, scratch yourself right now and go, you know? And this threat of death over you, the ending, keeps you in line. It does. It keeps you in line. Don't drive your car 200 miles an hour into a wall. Not, it's not endearing for life. Stuff like that. But people still do the stupidest things. Oh my goodness. You see, some of these. What were you thinking? Well, excuse me, you weren't. But this death is a really, it's used as a tool. It's used as a weapon. The gun, right? They come, give me everything you've got, and they're holding a gun at you. Well, a gun is the representation of death, because you fear the gun, because if they shoot you, you die. So what do? You give them the stuff, right? Yeah. Well, try to tell them no. Especially these young kids, they think they're so freaking powerful with that gun. Yeah. I was taught you don't use a weapon, because every weapon you bring out can be taken away from you and used on you. But these kids, they don't know it yet. They're watching too much TV, especially when they hold a gun at the side, sideways like this. The hell you doing? Boom! Whacked in the face. First time I saw that. What are you doing? Hollywood, love it. But yeah, that was my spiel. It was because of Chuck Norris, his death. And as we get older, the more we hear more familiar names dying. Well, of course, because we're all getting older, we're all getting close to death. You know, um, my wife is going to for her reunion, 50 years. Yeah, because she's old. Oh, God, she's old. And 18 of her class already. I mean, she comes from a small parochial school. Okay. And there wasn't that many in there. I think in her class there was like maybe 100, maybe. We had 728 in ours. But, you know, they had like 18 already die, which is 1 out of 5. So the whoa, see, you guys never pray hard enough. That's why. But yeah, so she wants to go to this year's reunion, and I told her, okay, you wanna go, we go, you know. And she, her class is class of '76. So what's the dress code? Red, white, and blue. I said, okay, that's for you because you're the graduating class, not for me. I'm wearing gold. Actually, it's yellow, golden yellow, with khaki and black. Yeah, so color coordinated. But yeah, that's my spiel for today. That's death. You know, I used to hate to go to funerals, but now when I go to a funeral, I don't go there to cry. I don't go there to be sad. I go there to celebrate the person's life. And I tell people that they go, you know, why are you telling jokes and stuff? Tell them because we celebrate the fact that the person lived, and we forget, you know, we accept the fact that he dies because everybody got to die. But how did he live? How did that person live? What kind of imprint did he put on the people? You know, I've delivered 3, 4 eulogies, and every eulogy getting better, getting easier. Just like this, you know, this production over here. When I first started, you go back to just talking #1. Oh my God, I didn't know what I was doing. Not that I do know what I'm doing now. I'm a little more relaxed. But yeah, and the eulogies are getting more. I'm cracking jokes. Yeah, I'm not just up there, you know, just being very serious, giving them, you know, he was born and died, went to school. No, I talk about the person now, and that's what I do. I talk to the bereaving members of the family, and I tell them, okay, give me something about him. Give me something good. What you know, what was his most endearing trait? What was his most annoying trait? You know, stuff like that. And we talk and we have good fun. And that's what it is. A funeral should be like an Irish wake. It should be a party. Yeah. We're not happy the fact that he died. We're just happy that the bugger lived. I'm happy in the fact that he lived and I got to know that person. You know, and that's what death is all about. So I hope you guys aren't offended by what I said, and I hope you take it to heart. Next week we're gonna talk about. I'm going back to bitching. I'm such a bitch. I'm gonna be talking about oxymorons. Yeah, you know one of my favorite ones, right? Artificial intelligence, government efficiency. You know, make believe stuff. Santa Claus. Yeah. In fact, I believe more in Santa Claus than the other two. But catch me next week when I'll be my own bitchy self again. But this week, I just had to say it. And again, to the family of Chuck Norris, my aloha, condolences. But I mean, that guy was 86, man. He had a good one. He had a good run. But until then, you take care. Tell your friends, subscribe, like, share, but just get the word out, yeah? And I just want to tell you guys all very much, ahui ho, malama pono. And from me to you, as the car goes by, aloha. See you next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. Bye bye.